Wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll be starting the webinar in just a couple of moments. Okay, it is 2:01, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm Katie O'Connor, and I'm a project manager with TechConnect. I'm here with Mike Stebbins, Senior Vice President in the Medical and Threat Countermeasures Division with Advanced Technology International. And we're excited to talk to you a little bit about the Chem Bio Threat Detection Innovation Challenge, how you can submit a successful entry, reasons you might want to do that, and if you're selected, what to expect when we get on site in National Harbor on September 23rd for the Defense TechConnect Innovation Summit. So Mike will give us a little context about the technical aspects of the challenge and about what the OTA is and how they're involved. And then we'll do a little Q&A after this short presentation. And if we can't answer any of your questions, we will follow up. The way to ask questions is to go to your control panel on the right side of your screen. And throughout the webinar, any questions that come up, you can just go ahead and ask those, and then I will read them all and get to them at the end. So thank you again for joining us. This challenge is stood up by TechConnect and powered by Advanced Technology International. So we want you to help solve some of the critical challenges facing our nation when it comes to chemical and biological threats. These threats are becoming more diverse, more sophisticated, and increasingly difficult to detect before they impact military operations, critical infrastructure, public health, or civilian populations. These are emerging pathogens, engineered biological agents, toxic industrial chemicals, and novel chemical warfare agents, which demand faster detection, smarter analysis, and more resilient protective capabilities. So these threats could be deliberate, accidental, naturally occurring, or unknown or novel. And across all of the sources, the critical detection gaps remain that put lives and missions at risk. So this is an open innovation prize challenge, which is a little bit unique. We are trying to reach new ways of thinking and non-traditional solvers and innovators through this type of opportunity. So it's intended to be a not onerous application process. It's a short website form and not a whole white paper. It's non-confidential in nature, so everything you submit should be non-confidential. And in fact, it's disqualified if you do provide anything that's marked as confidential. So about the program, we're seeking innovative technologies that strengthen detection, characterization, protection, and response across the full spectrum of chemical and biological threats. Those who should apply, we're looking at everyone from startups and small businesses with novel chem biodetection technologies to advanced companies, and especially dual-use innovators with commercial and defense applications. So you can see the QR code on the slide here that leads to the online form. And here's a little bit about the timeline. The deadline is at the end of the day on August 12th, and finalists will be notified later in August. The finalist pitch will be on September 23rd in person in National Harbor, Maryland at the Defense TechConnect Innovation Summit. Pitches will be during the day, we think at 2:15 p.m. And then that evening is a reception and the announcement of the winners, which will also be at the Gaylord in National Harbor. And then we offer an optional and recommended continued engagement for all finalists, which I'll go more into in a moment. So the biggest reason you should apply is that you can contribute to a solution that will help fill the critical detection gaps for chemical and biological threats that put lives and missions at risk. But aside from those mission-driven reasons, you have access to $50,000 in prizes that are outlined here on the screen. This is non-dilutive funding with no strings attached. There are 3 different prize levels. You can see here, $25,000 for first place, $15,000 for second, and $10,000 for third place. And if selected as a finalist, you will have a chance to meet influencers in this space with your free full conference pass for Defense TechConnect Innovation Summit. So there's going to be a review panel that's made up of technical, industry, and investment leaders, but also the audience represents attendees who are interested in the innovation piece. Well, of course, there'll be the Defense TechConnect Innovation Summit attendees, but we are also hosting the Bioeconomy Summit on September 21st and 22nd, which is co-located with the Defense TechConnect Innovation Summit. Also, the SBIR STTR Innovation Conference attendees will be there. The agency and program manager who are part of that and are interested in innovation in this space will also be there. Also venture capitalists and corporate scouts who are part of the event. And also other researchers and peers that are building solutions and coming up with ideas. So it's a really cross-functional audience that represents a pretty unique opportunity to meet a lot of potential partners. So after the conference, winners and finalists, everyone is encouraged, though not required, to stay engaged with TechConnect. So we like to have quarterly check-ins. We want to understand how you're doing, what growth has happened, what needs you may have. And if we see opportunities to connect you or recommend you for something that you could be a part of, then we will do that. So it's a way for us to keep you in mind and also for us to understand how you are and how you're growing. So if you are ready to apply, please review the official challenge page. You can get there at the QR code right here. And remember to make every part of your submission non-confidential and submit your submission by the end of the day on August 12th. So now, like I said, if you have any questions, please put them in the questions thing on the right side of your screen. And now I'm going to pass it over to Mike Stebbins to give us a little bit more context.
All right, Katie, thanks so much. You need to give me, there we go.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
That's all good. Okay, is that showing?
Not just yet.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Sure.
All right, now we got it. Good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, excellent. All right, thanks, Katie, for that great introduction. Just to go over some of the more technical details and really what will help you make a more compliant submission, and by that I mean give you a leg up on getting to a down select and then presenting to the audience and the panel that you'll eventually come in front of if you are a finalist. So one area that both ATI and TechConnect collaborate in quite a bit is aligning national priorities, those items, needs, priorities that the government has, the funding that's associated with them, and how to get not only become aware of industry that is capable of solving those problems, either individually or through some teaming, but getting them aware of those problems. And so for this particular Chem Bio challenge, this is in direct support of Department of Homeland Security's their mission, which is really to safeguard the homeland against evolving chemical, biological threats, etc. But we are concentrated here specifically on chemical and biological threats. So the priorities writ large include enhanced biosurveillance, so early warning systems, monitoring for all sorts of biological incidences. So this could be like an Ebola outbreak or something that's happening at a port. Seaborne defense readiness, so chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear hazards. Again, that could be port, any place of entry into the country. But what defense readiness posture can we present through this challenge? Critical infrastructure resilience, so ensuring that the services that are in place to respond to or prevent an attack and to deal with potential contamination, how are we innovating there, and what technologies might you have to bring to bear against that? And then something that we always are looking at is emerging threats and how do we address those. So there's a biosurveillance, there's a resilience, there's a readiness aspect to that, but really anticipating and countering novel chemical and biological threats. So a little more of a deep dive into the areas of interest, and then I'll talk about one area that I don't think is really going to apply here. But let's go with biosurveillance and agent agnostic detection. We're really looking for, and the government is as well, broad spectrum systems that detect biological threats without prior knowledge of a specific agent. So you can think of this in terms of a almost a platform technology. How do I quickly morph my technology to pick up something that we haven't picked up before? Again, from a surveillance mode or immediate, hey, we have something in hand and we need to identify what it is without knowing prior. Artificial intelligence and bioinformatics, AI, data tools that allow us to accelerate that threat identification, very much aligns with the biosurveillance, but enables more real-time classification. Protective materials and decontamination. So this is just as you might expect. How do we protect our assets that are in place that might be exposed to chemical or biological threats? And that includes both personnel, human personnel, as well as equipment. And then how do we enable rapid recovery from that? How do we decontaminate? Again, individuals as well as equipment, vehicles, etc. This next one is very cross-cutting: integrated detection centers, situational awareness. I started up about 8 years ago a program through the capability program office within DOW. It's a countering weapons of mass destruction consortium, and situational awareness is very important there. Understanding what threats might be present before we send either troops or equipment into a forward operating position. So you can imagine this along our border, at some of our, really at all of our ports, etc. And how do we tie those sensor platforms together and integrate them so that we really do achieve real-time, actionable intelligence that can help us understand the threat landscape. And then a synthetic biology, biosecurity, biomanufacturing area of interest. Really technologies to detect and counter and mitigate those engineered biological threats. Really at the forefront of the technology.
Excuse me, Mike.
Yeah.
Can you, they are saying that they're not seeing the slides progress. Could you try to go back to the beginning and maybe make it full screen?
Yeah, let's see. I'm going to stop sharing and see if I can't bring it back up. Okay, sorry about that.
I was seeing the slides progress though, so
yeah,
we'll get some comments when we get back on here and see if we can see them.
Give me 1 second.
Sure. Thanks for waiting, everybody. And there's a question about, will a copy of the slides be shared after the call? No, not typically, but we will share the video. So that's why we're going to get the slides right now.
Okay. Can you tell me what you're seeing, Katie?
I'm seeing aligning with national priorities, but can someone in the audience please tell us if you could advance the slide?
So just advance to areas of interest.
They are not seeing past the title slide.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me see if I can, this is a PDF. Let me see if I can pull up
the PowerPoint version.
How about now? Yeah, I'm going to pull the PowerPoint version up.
Yeah. Also, I can share, if you'd like, I can share your slides and you can just continue.
If you have them available, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't think of that sooner. 1 moment. Thanks for holding, everybody. I'm going to make myself the presenter again. Okay.
Yeah, let's go to maybe the first slide, the aligning with national priorities. Is everybody seeing that now?
I can no longer see the comments. Mike, can you?
I see some thumbs up coming, so that's good.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not going to restate everything, but here's the aligning with the priorities. We spoke about enhanced biosurveillance, Chem, Bio, Rad, Nuke, Defense Readiness, Critical Infrastructure, Resilience, and then emerging threats. So that was the aligning with national priorities. I'll leave that up there for just a second if anybody wants to do a screen grab. All right, Katie, let's just advance to the next slide. And again, we'll spend just a moment here. I went over this as well. These are the specific areas of interest. And while you're taking a look at that, the one item that I had mentioned that I thought was not applicable here was medical countermeasures. So here we're talking about agent agnostic detection, AI, informatics, protection, decontamination, integration, sensors, situational awareness, et cetera. But we're not talking about how do I prevent exposure, how do I, from a medical standpoint, like a prophylaxis. So no vaccines, therapeutics that we're looking for here. And detection is really the key as opposed to, say, diagnostics. So this is less medically human or human medical standpoint and more how do we handle a situation before it happens or once it has happened. We're not treating an individual here in particular outside of, say, decontamination. So if you have any questions on that, I'll be happy to answer that at the end. But if we can move on to the next area, next slide, please. So this slide's really discussing a bit more about the technical guardrails, and this should really help you understand whether your technology might fit into the scope. So I presented the nature of the technology. Now we're talking about where does that technology fall in its maturity. So from a technology readiness standpoint, we're looking at TRLs in the 3 to 7 range. All levels are considered, but if you're talking early 1 or 2 that's not even at a proof of concept or gotten off the bench, then I would say that's unlikely to make it through the cut. If you have something that's already in production, so it's in place and being used, and you see, and we'll get to dual use next, but you see additional ability for it to meet one of the criteria, then I think that's very appropriate. But generally, we're talking in the 3 to 4 from a TRL standpoint. Anything that is dual use or has dual use applicability is a leg up from the competition. And I say that really the government's always looking for dual use technologies, because in a lot of cases when they're not buying procurement type items, if they're going to invest their money one day, they want to invest it in something that's going to meet a particular need of theirs, but also would have commercial application. So dual use technologies, those with the greatest promise across defense sectors, homeland security sectors, commercial sectors, and homeland security, honestly, is tailor-made for prototyping and dual use applicability. Katie brought this up. We are not looking for confidential proprietary information. All submissions must not contain proprietary, classified, or sensitive information. Unfortunately, that'll be a grounds for just elimination off the bat. You'll be, if you get selected for the pitch, you'll be talking in a public environment. So the information that you provide to us should be for public dissemination, and then the information that you talk about in the pitch should be as well. Demonstrated capability, that's a game changer as well. Any concepts that already have initial validation or any level of validation that move beyond purely theoretical are going to have a leg up. While this is just a challenge, this information ultimately will go to Homeland Security for them to look over, and they're going to be interested in those technologies that already have some level of technical validation. And then I might have already mentioned this in the TRL, but scope limitations. We're not looking for basic research. We're not looking for unrelated technologies. Those that are addressing chem bio threats are what we're looking for. So if you're outside of those guardrails, don't be surprised if you get a call back or your submission is just not considered for moving forward. And I'd be happy to answer any questions after that. So if we can move on to, I think, the next to the last slide. So let's talk about other transaction authority, and I'll try to go high level here and then connect the dots back between, say, TechConnect and ATI. So an other transaction or other transaction authority is an acquisition vehicle used by the federal government. I apologize if this is super well known. It just depends on where you are in your technology development and how frequent you've interacted with the federal government from a contracting standpoint. Most government contracts are regulated by the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation, very onerous and very difficult for small businesses to deal with the regulations associated with FAR-based contracting. Now, there are grants and cooperative agreements, et cetera, but other transactions were created specifically to get to the technology that resided with those smaller companies that often were precluded from doing business with the government because they just could not meet the regulations of the FAR. The authority has been around for decades. It really spun out of Sputnik and the U.S. finding itself immediately behind in the space race. And initially it was, we're going to create a contract on a blank sheet of paper. And it, of course, has many terms and conditions now. A lot of FAR creep and FAR clauses have moved into other transactions, but the concept is still as it was to begin with. And how do we lower the burden for entities that have technologies that the government is interested in? How do we get them on contract quickly? And so the authority is granted by Congress to different departments within the federal government. So the Department of War, Department of Defense has it writ large. Health and Human Services has it scattered throughout. NASA, DOE, et cetera. Homeland Security has flirted with it back and forth and has had a sort of a pathway where it gets reauthorized and then that authorization lapses. But I think they have that squared away now. And so where TechConnect intersects with ATI is TechConnect is really on the forefront of identifying and uncovering new technologies. ATI, as a collaboration company, we execute about 20 to 25 different collaborations on behalf of the federal government, and about 17 or 18, it seems to be changing by the month, are governed by other transaction authority. And the way we execute those is when the federal government has a portfolio of research, often prototyping research. So we're past basic R&D. This is advanced R&D, moving into prototype with an eye towards full production. They enter into an agreement with a company like ATI that executes this portfolio of research for them. So the outcome of many of these challenges is that companies, if they're not already a member of one of our consortia, can join the consortia and then avail themselves to the solicitations that come out from the federal government. And we execute advanced R&D prototyping dollars from the federal government to industry at a rate of about $4.5 to $5 billion annually of non-dilutive government funding. So I'm going to just touch on some of these items here in this slide. It can be an accelerated path to government customers. The reason is once you join one of these consortia, and they are typically aligned with technology focus areas. So I mentioned earlier that I helped stand up a counter WMD consortium. So that is looking at some technologies very similar to what we've spoken about today, but everything to protect the warfighter from exposure to chemical and biological rad nuke threats as well that are not medical in nature, meaning we're not looking to do vaccines and therapeutics, but we also run a consortium that does just that and is looking solely at soldier health from an exposure standpoint. We run consortia and collaborations that look at Navy shipbuilding cost reduction. We have one that's looking at the entirety of the biopharmaceutical manufacturing supply chain. So understanding where these consortia align from a technology standpoint relative to your company's efforts can be an accelerated path to government customers and a funding mechanism for you. Oftentimes that funding is faster, meaning it can come on contract faster, which is important, particularly for small businesses where cash flow is important, but also timelines are much more accelerated, and a smaller company can't deal with a 12 or 18 month cycle to get go from submitting a proposal to getting a contract on award. Most other transaction agreements allow a very seamless transition from prototyping to production. So if you had a successful prototype agreement end and the government wants to then purchase, you can go directly into a sole source contract because that's written into the language of your agreement. I did talk about the lower barriers to entry for commercial companies, particularly those that haven't done business with the government, and that includes large businesses as well as small. And through these mechanisms, these other transactions and consortia, you have more direct access to not only the government customer that's buying, but perhaps the end user who's using the technology. And then, of course, the Valley of Death. It's an interesting topic here. There's multiple valleys of death in all technology development, but one of the worst is when you've spent all of the advanced R&D dollars to get through a prototype and then it just sits on the shelf and doesn't make it into production. So these other transaction authorities and the resulting agreements really address all of these 6 items. If you have questions about how your technology might align with consortia and other transactions that exist today, feel free to ask. You can always go to ATI's website and you can do a little search that'll help align your technologies with efforts that are active today. And then I think that's it. We can go into questions.
There we go. I know there's a QR code here, but I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see the questions. Okay. Would technologies that distinguish detection of biologically active infectious pathogens from inactive ones to guide decontamination and support return to duty decisions for military personnel be considered within scope?
I think that would be absolutely within scope. If you brought up the troops coming back into action, and whether it's Pete Hegseth or the prior Secretary of War, we think of our Army or our military as from a lethality standpoint. And if we don't have troops in action, then they can't be a lethal force. So absolutely return to duty decisions, whether something's active or inactive, 100% in scope.
Fantastic. Thank you. Let's see. We have multiple technologies ready. Can we submit more than one? Yes, I think is the answer. They need to be distinct from each other, and you would absolutely, you should absolutely submit more than one if you have more than one. But you would probably only be given one pitch opportunity, so we would choose the best of the technologies that you submit. So, do you have anything to add to that, Mike?
No, I've seen in many of these prize challenges multiple submissions, and Katie, you're spot on. They would have to be very compelling to put 2 in a finalist, but I think it's possible.
I think I've seen it happen on one of our other challenges. Okay, what does the pitch format look like? So if you should be selected as a finalist, you will have the in-person pitch at the Defense TechConnect Innovation Summit. Like I mentioned, that's in National Harbor, Maryland. You would, each company will do a 5-minute pitch followed by 2 minutes of Q&A from an in-person live review panel. And they're the only ones that will ask questions directly to you, not the audience. And they may give feedback or offer contacts or whatever they'll use that time and space for to help them make a determination about who the final 3 awardees will be. And then, like I said, the awardees will be announced at the reception later that evening.
Katie, can I pile on to that? Did you happen to mention how long the individual pitches will be duration-wise? 5 minutes. Okay. So
Yep.
that's really important. So in 5 minutes, you have to convey to the panel the importance of your innovation, what problems it's solving, where it is in its maturity level, etc. And so it can't be a grand background because you might never get to the punchline. So keep that in mind. It's really, you really have to curate your delivery to make sure you're getting those points across, and then maybe even beg a question where you want to explain a little bit more during the 2-minute question and answer session.
Yeah, great. Thank you. All right, next question. Would existing technologies that provide human curated scientific data, which can be applied for chem biointelligence, be applicable for this contest?
Can you repeat that again?
Would existing technologies that provide human curated scientific data, which can be applied for chem biointelligence, be applicable?
I think that falls in the surveillance window, and so I would think yes.
Great. All right, here's another one. Ex vivo tissue platform to detect novel biothreats is within scope, or is that too detailed?
I don't know that that's too detailed, but I think you need to be able to explain how quickly it can be used and where it fits within those thrust areas.
Great, thank you. Are there reporting, publishing, or IP requirements if selected for a prize? No, these are no strings attached dollars. As an optional value add for both our organization and the finalists, like I said, we do 2 years of ongoing engagement so that we can see if we can get you involved in anything else. No IP, and you know, we talked about already, this is a public pitch, so no confidential information. Yeah, and again, just be public, or be conscious this is a public pitch, and check all documents and slides. If you're going to have slides on your public pitch, make sure they don't have anything confidential either. That was, let's see. I don't think I'm seeing too many. Is there any cost to apply? No, it is free to apply. If you're chosen, it's free to attend the event as well. And then I think you'll have to pay for your own travel costs to attend the event, but the registration is free. And the event is unique that it's held at the Defense TechConnect Innovation Summit. And so, you know, this is a several-hour portion of like a whole large 3-day networking and connection event conference for the defense ecosystem. So that's no cost to apply, but big wins if you are selected. Any other questions? Give it another 1 or 2 minutes if anybody wants to add a question. Mike, do you have anything else you want to add for this audience?
I'll just reiterate, once you find out that you're a finalist, really work through your presentation and your presentation deck, just so, because 5 minutes is challenging. It's like barely a glorified elevator speech. You've got a 3-star in the elevator and you have to sell him on or her on something. 5 minutes goes by very quickly. So where you can get right to the point, I can't stress that enough. I've seen great technologies get poorly presented, and that kept them from being one of the 3 winners. That's
great advice. And yeah, I'll also add that we'll be closely moderating the pitch competition. So the cutoff will be like at 5 minutes. We'll have to interrupt if people.
Yeah, it's really important not to give an advantage to anybody by letting them go long.
Yep. Okay. I still don't see any new questions, so I think we will just wrap it up. And Mike, thank you so much for being with us, and audience, thank you so much.
Thanks, Katie.
Absolutely. And everybody can send us an email and follow up if you have any more questions. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.